Welcome back, South Carolina. I'm your host, Brandon Peak, and this is podcast 1854. Today's Sunday, April the 24th, and as much as I hate to say, but we have to bring you some bad news. And this morning at 2:48 a.m., a Casey police officer was shot and killed on a domestic call. Is Officer Roy Andrew Barr. He was headed out to a domestic dispute, and unfortunately he was shot and he was killed on that call. And so we are sending our thoughts and prayers to his family and his friends, his community. It's never good when we lose anyone, but especially an officer who's going out to serve and protect our community. And also, we're joined in the studio by Gerald Byrne.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good to be here, as always.
Yes, sir. He's back again.
Good to be here. And seriously, our condolences out to Officer Drew, on a Sunday.
On a Sunday. Yeah.
Wow.
And just think, as we was discussing earlier, Jerry, there have been many calls for officers to be disarmed, without lethal force, for domestic calls. They want psychologists and all this and that to go on them calls. And this is a prime example of why it's so important that these officers do have the proper equipment to do their job, because just like this, there was actually 3 officers that were there, that were shot at. And, unfortunately, he lost his life. And, he didn't have any kids, and he wasn't married, but nonetheless, we lost someone. And
described in the article, married to his profession, someone that wanted to serve his community and serve for the greater good, and especially being on that thin blue line. Every day, you could be saying goodbye, even when you do have loved ones and you have children, and you never know when the last time is that you'll put on that badge and then possibly not come home.
Exactly.
The following night, and it breaks my heart. You know what I mean? And that's what we very, very grateful and thankful to have once again armed law enforcement fighting for us and protecting us. And even to go back to your point, yeah, I know in I believe the UK, their police officers, I don't believe that they have any firearms at all.
They don't. It's a special unit that has to be dispatched out, and that's it. But they're everyday law enforcement, traffic stops, all this and that. They're not allowed to have anything like that. And
we're talking about two different countries, as many would like to think. They're 2 Western powers. They're pretty similar in terms of government and the formation of their governments, etc., so on and so forth. Yet I don't think that you can, once again, compare the United States to the UK and implement the same policies in the United States, not with that Second Amendment up. And it's unfortunate that there are people that are mentally unstable carrying a firearm, for sure. And it really does give a bad reputation to law-abiding citizens that do carry and that are exercising their Second Amendment right. And just because one person does it does not mean that it gives a whole bearing or a whole label to a whole group of people. So I think it's something that we need to reflect on. But still, nevertheless, I'm glad that the officers were there. Unfortunate that an officer got killed in the line of duty, and it just breaks my heart. But condolences out to him and his family. So
yes, the department as well. That like the article said, he was married to his work. So I mean, it's something that we really have to think about. And it's like, when you go to the store and you buy a bag of grapes, right? There's going to be a couple bad grapes in that bag. It always is. Not every one of them is perfect, right?
True.
So do we throw away the whole bag of grapes? We don't. We buy the bag and we pick out the bad ones and we toss them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then we consume the rest.
It's a good analogy.
You know? So same thing with guns. I had someone tell me not too long ago that guns kill random children, random people, and all this and that. And so I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, okay, well, ma'am, with all due respect, do you realize that cars kill random children and random people every day? A lot more than guns do. And so, you know, we can't sit here and, which there's been a lot of tragedy going on with gun violence and all that. And so, first and foremost, you know, we do need to figure out a way to track, you know, get a better grip of how the guns are distributed in some cases. And but far as our Second Amendment, you know, we have that for a reason. It was written for a reason, and I've said on this show before, it's number 2, guys. It's number 2. So it was that much of a priority and that much of a concern that we have the right to bear arms here in America, because it was the Second Amendment ever written. Free speech was number 1, and the right to bear arms was number 2. So
you think about it, as soon as they strip you of number 2, guess what comes to follow, and guess what's stripped next? Amendment number 1. They're coming after your first. And that's one of the things where some people got to draw the line. And going back to that point where, you know, guns kill people, I believe that people kill people
for sure,
and really comes down into the mental psyche of it, you know, where, you know, it's hard to crack down, but still, nevertheless, you know, these people they take up arms and they take action, or, you know, believe it or not, justice into their own hands, whatever the case may be. And once again, they just desecrate a whole group of law-abiding citizens that do carry. And for me, you know, you have lawmakers, politicians stating, you know, oh, we're going to take this away, you know, and everything. With Beto O'Rourke, I believe.
I'm coming after your gun. It's just like, come on, dude.
Right after the AR-15, I believe he wanted to completely ban, and I guarantee you he's an individual who believes AR stands for assault rifle, you know, and you just sit back and you sit staggered, just like, these are the people that are these are the people that are going to take away our rights. Makes you scratch your head and realize, wow, these people are not doing their research. They're not understanding what is really the root cause in all this. And I can't stress it enough. It's definitely the mental aspect in once again clinching that. Going back to school shootings, you know, many people were concerned about going after or writing in laws that just really go against the Second Amendment, to be completely honest with you, and they think that that's going to be the solution.
It's not.
You think that if they abided by whatever law you written down, first off, they're not even listening to any law that's being written down. They're not going to follow any law. They're a criminal. They're a crook.
Exactly right.
And
you said it best right there.
I hate to be that way. Or say, you know, once again, that they do have mental problems, whatever the case may be. It really, the focus and the narrative, I believe, has to change in order to attack, once again, the mentality. I think it's all about the mental psyche when it comes to people and owning guns, for sure. So just being careful, background checks, you know, once again, just to, you know, go through and make sure that everything is okay. And I know that there are some people that may even be against that. Nevertheless, I would rather feel safer, you know what I mean? If we're talking about guns down this line, I just, you know, just to bring it all back, the mental aspect, I would say, is one of the things that should be concentrated on when lawmakers are writing any kind of gun laws or any kind of safety requirements. So
exactly. And you know, unfortunately, you know, my niece and nephew and sister-in-law, they were murdered in March the 15th of 2011. And, you know, I've had people ask me, you know, why do you collect guns so much? Why do you have so many guns when they killed your family? And it goes back to what you just said. You know, the gun didn't kill my family. You know, my nephew turned 10 March the 1st, and then March the 15th, you know, their lives was taken. The guy was high on cocaine. He was drunk, you know, had other drugs in the system. So his mental stability wasn't there. It wasn't there. So it wasn't the fact that that gun did that. You know, a bullet doesn't have a name on it. You know, a gun, I mean, it just doesn't. When we would train at the police academy and you're shooting your targets right as you're qualifying. You have to qualify every year, because if you don't, then you don't get to carry that gun, period. So they would always tell us, every time you miss that target, that's $1 million. Think about it like that, because they're thinking about a lawsuit.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you be sure, you know, when you pull that gun, you know, you need to be ready, because you have to be focused. But still, it takes a person to operate that gun. It takes a person to put it together, to load the magazine, to
have that
it.
focus to actually use it with malicious intent,
Exactly
in a way
right.
that it's going. You know,
that gun doesn't operate itself.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and it goes just what I said about cars. You know, your car's in the lot, my truck's in the lot. What's it doing right there? It's just hanging out, right?
Sitting parked.
Until we get in
getting
there.
Heated up.
Exactly. Yeah, getting heated up for sure. Yeah, I was like, yeah, we're down here in South Carolina, so look at here. It's barely it's 5 to 1, and here it is, 75 degrees out. You know, so
my friends up in the north right now, they're just like, I wish I had your weather. I wish I had that. And I'm like, man, it feels so good to be down here. And
right.
Just, you can come out with shorts, everything. But you know, here we are all dolled up, you know, on a Sunday. But
for
nevertheless,
sure.
We came from I honestly think a really, really good service that we had.
Oh, it was a beautiful service, for real, you know. So as always, the Meeting Place Church of Greater Columbia, it's just phenomenal service. And I'm glad, you know, like I say, you was able to join us, man. It's always a pleasure having you. And
I appreciate it. Yeah, so, I try to make it out as much as I can. You know, definitely got family up in Simpsonville, so I try to take advantage of the weekends at times. You know, just a busy schedule. A lot has been going on. A lot has been changing, and honestly, for the greater good.
Yes.
Honestly, for the greater good. And I'm very, very stoked, very happy, glad to even be here after the service and just dive into a couple things. You know.
That's right.
But before we do any of that, I think that you should, you know, relate to the people. You know, what's going on, what you got coming up this week. What's new with you?
Oh man, dude, it's been crazy. Like you said, things have changed, and it has been for the better. You know, for both of us. And so yeah, this week is it's a busy week. I know Wednesday we have Kizzy Smalls, who's coming on. She's running for House of Representatives for District 77, and Kizzy and I we met for the first time last year in the summer when Mike Pompeo came down out at the Silver Elephant. Yep. And so we was at the gala at the convention center in downtown Columbia, and she just so happened to be seated at you know, we were seated at the same table, and that was our first time interacting together. And you know, she came to Fairfield, where I'm from, and you know, she spoke. And so phenomenal woman, a true patriot, you know, loves the Constitution, loves God, loves our country. And so I'm very, very stoked to have her on the show, you know, Wednesday. And it's going to be a treat for everyone, because she embodies literally just, I mean, to be a woman and to have that much power and that much presence, like, she seriously embodies it, man. And I think District 77 is, you know, would be
very fortunate, very lucky.
Yes, yeah. Exactly, to have her, because her work ethic, I mean, it speaks for itself. It's just like, man, all you have to do is just research, look what she's done. And so that's going to be phenomenal, dude. I'm excited about that.
I'm excited to hear it. I'm telling you, I hear such great things about Kizzy Smalls. So, yeah. And I've, you know, I met her at, I believe, Richland County. We've seen each other a lot, you know, but I always hear good things, and I'm just excited to get to know her more and see what she's about. And you know, from everything that I have heard, once again, it goes back to District 77. Very, very fortunate, very grateful to have someone running and fighting for you. So yeah, I'm excited to hear and excited to listen to it. So
yeah, dude. And then we have, you know, we have the debate coming up on the 28th. So that is that Thursday. Yeah. And this will be the first political debate in South Carolina that hosts all the candidates that are running for the Superintendent of Education. We've had one person that denied the request. You know, she announced her campaign, and then, you know, she was sent out an invitation to come, and she denied immediately, you know, which is okay. She has the right to do that. But in my opinion, and this is just me, But when you have everyone, I mean, we have Democrats, we have conservatives, Republicans, Green Party members. So this will be the first debate with all the members all the people together, and so it's an honor. And Peaks Production Incorporated, we're sponsoring it, and I have the honor of being the mediator. And so it's going to be nice, man. And Life Springs Worship Center on Platte Springs Road, that's where it's located. It'll be at 7 p.m. and it's free to the public. So you guys come out. And like I say, it's going to be phenomenal. And, know your candidates. And this is a platform to where you'll get, to hear from them directly, and then being diverse with all, just a different parties representing different parties and hearing their perspectives on the same questions that are being asked. It's going to be very interesting, man. And I'm excited to see it. And again, I have to shout out, like I say, Life Springs Worship Center for allowing us to put this debate on. And that's what they do for the community. I think it's incredible, because they want to get the message out as well. And so big shout out to them, and thank y'all. It's phenomenal. So hopefully we'll see you guys there, and we have a flyer out, and we'll post that in the description, with the address and everything. And so dude, I'm looking forward to it, man. So it's going to be a busy week for sure.
It looks good. I mean, just to even see the diversity where you've got conservatives, Democrats, Green Party. I mean, it's really, really, it's going to be really cool to see it. And first time for me physically being at something like that, where there's a wide array of political parties, I would say, that are once again putting out their voices on why they believe they would make the best superintendent of education. So I'm very, very excited for it. And I'll be joining. And man, so we got that going on Thursday, 7 p.m. again. And
that's right.
Location one more time?
It's at Life Springs Worship Center. Off of Platte Springs Road.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's been pretty cool, man. Planning and I've told you, I was like, man, once I got into it, and there are so many federal and state laws that goes into a political debate whenever you have different candidates from representing different parties, and so, man, between researching those and then writing our own rules that coincide with the state and federal statutes, and so it's definitely been a lot. And then researching the candidates as well, and we've had majority of them on the show, and so we're Ellen Weaver, her team, we've reached out, and they, we've talked, and so once they confirm the date, then she'll be joining us as well. And I'm really interested in talking to her and having her on the podcast, so and it's like I say, man, these are the people that could really use their platforms. Like Courtney, we sat here the other week, and when we did the announcement, and we were talking, and the superintendent, when it comes to local levels, right? There's they don't have as much power, but they do have a platform, and they do have connections. So they can use their platform, they can use their connections to enforce all these higher salaries that are being paid without putting out. So it's like Courtney and I said, why can't those salaries be reduced and the teachers, their salaries be bumped up? I mean, these teachers that, and we're not talking about teachers that, are wanting to teach, single digit kids about sex, and, a man could be a woman could be a man. Forget that. You honestly shouldn't be nowhere near a school, and you should be a registered offender, in my opinion, because you're breaking the law in my mind. That's just me. That's my personal opinion, and that won't change by no means.
My personal opinion is you got religion out of schools, right?
Yeah.
Why are we teaching this, gender identity topics to kindergartners? We're
Seriously?
talking about kindergartners right here. You kidding me now?
They've even tried to hide it in math books. Did you see where DeSantis sat there and
took
he rejected
41%, I want to say, of the textbooks that were being, once again being utilized in the state of Florida because of the inklings.
Bro. Yeah, and it's just like, how, I mean, first off, when it comes to a math book, a math book. When I read that, I was like, okay, I only got one eye, so let me go back and make sure that I saw that correct. You know what I mean? So let me look again, and I looked again. Math books.
It's got to be in the written. It's got to be in the written problems, man. I mean, I couldn't even imagine, because I've been doing some research and got a buddy back up in New York who moved to Florida, actually became a police officer in Orlando,
Okay.
and he's been kind of shifting different ideologies around, where he's like, I understand the conservative, I do, but I fall more libertarian. But he was coming from the Democratic Party, so keep that in mind. Where he was a Democrat all this time, you know, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, obviously left, but I still respected him, and we're always boys, don't get me wrong.
That's
but
right.
you know, he's like, the Libertarian Party, like, why can't the Republicans be like that? I'm like, you have to understand that there are moral principles and there are concepts that triumph a lot of even the Libertarian Party itself. I truly believe, and that's just my own personal opinion. So, and I can only speak on behalf of that. But regardless of all that, you know, here I am. I mean, I'm giving him research studies. I'm giving him teachers that have openly admitted to using CRT, openly admitted to utilizing it, to be like, look, and then speaks on behalf of her students with just her one voice to news outlets or to whoever she's, you know, relaying just the impact or the effect of, you know, a lot of the students, they all felt the same way. They felt the despair and everything like that. And, you know, you don't know what little Johnny's going home to his mother, and his mother's got to read this stuff, and then he's being and then his parents are like, why are we paying taxes for a public school system to teach my kid this, when in all reality we used to teach history like 1, 2, and 3, or math now in Florida. Absolutely ridiculous to me, and it's just another method. I mean, this has been going on for years, and not a lot of people know this.
It has been going on for years.
Not a lot of people know this. They
just use different terms is all it is.
That's all it is. And it's look, I'll give you a prime example where, you know, you can say it has the inklings of, but fell under Common Core, closely related with CRT, believe it or not. Maybe not CRT directly, but it has a bias in it, a leftist
social emotional learning. Think about that.
Yeah,
that's really, in my opinion, you know, where it got started. You know, when they sit there and they're talking social emotional learning, and now it's in the military, and it's just like, whoa, you know, like, and what are we doing to our armed forces? Like, we're raising.
It's a psychological experiment. Now the job that the military has to do now has to be infringed upon by, once again, this narrative, I feel like. And now becomes the military as a social experiment, where now we have time to do. Meanwhile,
they're going to get killed in the battlefield. Is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Russia's taking over Ukraine, and China's looking over at Taiwan, which we will touch upon. We definitely have to touch upon that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But I'm interested to see about the, you know, the meeting that's going to take place between our Secretary of State
Anthony Blinken and the U.S. I believe the National Defense Secretary. I want to say, forgot his name, but regardless of, I know that Kiev is or I should just say, President Zelensky. I know that he is expecting them to come, and I think that those talks are going to be more about what's going to be supplied more for Ukraine to once again withstand Russia, because I mean, I know that they are crushing Mariupol right now.
They are, dude. I saw the
they're backing out their troops, getting ready for I want to say
a drop.
I want to say so
for sure.
And it's scary, whether that's missiles, whether that's new. I don't know. Dude, I'm not in Russia's administration, but
if they drop a nuke, I mean, come on, you know, the world should rain hell down on them, in my opinion. You know, I mean, they're already looking at, you know, which I said it in the beginning when it first started, chemical weapons. You know, we did an episode on that, if you remember. And so I was like, hey, this is how I think they're going to do this, and they'll throw in chemical weapons, and then boom, boom, boom. But, you know, there wasn't that many. I want to say around 500, you know, troops was of, you know, Ukraine was in. They were kind of surrounded and trapped, and so they were literally calling out for help, to say, help, you know, get us out, evacuate us, help, do what you can, all this and that. And you know, it's like Russia wants to take over the ports. You know, they want to take the sea.
Oh yeah.
All of that, and then once they do that, they can control everything. And do you think it's going to stop with Ukraine?
No,
No.
not in the.
Think about Poland.
I think about Poland. I think about Belarus. I think about,
Belarus. Yeah. There you go.
I think about all that area. I know a lot of refugees out in Ukraine. They went to Poland. They went to Germany. I don't know the exact number, but I know that there are hundreds of thousands, I believe, in Germany right now as we speak. And, you just sit and scratch your head. And, I believe that President Biden, I believe that he sent out another 800, I could be wrong, but another 800 million, or maybe 800, I'm not million. I just know that he sent out more money for Ukraine to fight against this. And it's such a sticky situation where now it comes with lethal military weapon. I just sit back and I'm like, you couldn't have done this back in 2014?
Yeah.
Really? But as long as the big man gets his 10%, as long as the big guy gets his 10%.
That's because his son, I mean, you got to think about the money that his son was making.
That's very true.
It is.
Yeah.
So
no connection there.
No
the news don't want to
connection,
pick that up.
none.
Forget it. Hunter's laptop.
Yeah.
They don't want to bring that up. But one of these days, we will bring it up. We will bring it up because I'm waiting for that whole story. I know that it's probably out, but I'm waiting for that whole story to really go in and dissect that. But God forbid that ever got talked about by the mainstream media. They're more worried about what was Trump up to, or what is he doing? What DeSantis is doing? What how he's running his state and everything by the people that have elected him into power.
That's right.
Now they're gonna question that. Come on now. Then you got this whole Disney World thing that was going on.
Oh man, kudos to Ron DeSantis, brother. Like I'll tell you, when you strip Disney of their power, I was telling someone earlier, Disney, for those of y'all that don't know, Disney was pretty much like its own country.
It was tax exempt, I want to say, right?
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, it was seriously like its own country. And so he was like, oh, you know what? So you want to sit here and take, our 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and you want to indoctrinate them and do this and do that. So guess what? We're fixing to level the playing field. And he did just that, So kudos to you, Ron. Like, I'm going to tell you, brother, 2024, I can see you running for president. I really can, man, because, he's a younger man, first and foremost, and just what he's done for freedom, liberty, justice, I mean, everything. And you even had these prominent politicians that were Democrats that were voting, to lock everything down, keep everyone restricted. But they knew, and I said this on an episode or two ago, they knew the freedom that Florida had. So they were hitching out. They didn't want no one to know, but they were heading down to Florida because
the numbers show
freedom.
The numbers show.
I mean?
I'm a numbers guy, so
yeah, you are.
Yeah,
and so it's just like, all right, so I'm going to make my state suffer. The people that elected me, I'm going to make them suffer. But then I'm going to head down to Florida and I'm going to hang out, where Governor DeSantis has liberated and had the freedom. And he fought back, opened the ports. He's done, I think, some great things, like truly phenomenal things. And I really believe the way he's fighting back, that's true patriotism right there. That's the leadership America needs. And
100%.
Yeah, dude, because you have what I call shits and giggles. So the clowns, Biden and Kamala. You have shits and Biden and giggles and Kamala. And, look at what's going on with the border. We can send millions, now we're in the billions of dollars over to Ukraine, okay, that has been announced to the public, all right? So I've always said rule of thumb for me is whatever they tell us that they're doing, you can, double that for sure, or triple in some cases, because if they're openly letting you know that they're doing this, think about what they're not telling you.
Yeah.
Think about that.
It's just a precursor for what's next that they're going to tell you that they've already executed.
Exactly right.
And it's crazy. You know what I mean? It's crazy when you think about it. When you're telling me, the vice president sitting there, I believe that she was in a conference with the Polish president, or I believe they were doing something. And she addresses the news about what's going on over there, where Ukraine is a country. It's a small country next to Russia. Russia is a big country. And I'm like, and I believe that we did talk about this before, but, it's just one of those things that you sit back and just like, she's barely been to Europe. Has she even been to Europe? other than that time?
No,
I believe
no.
that was her
She
first
hasn't
time.
been to the border, dude, and she's supposed to be the one over the border crisis here.
Yeah.
And you have ranchers and families, I mean, that are literally in danger. I
Yeah.
mean, their livelihood.
Further she went was El Paso, I want to say.
Yeah,
And not even the border.
No, she ain't gonna head to the southern border. No, shit, no, man. And that's because the cameras are gonna follow her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, she is labeled as the vice president, but I'm gonna tell you, she will go down as the worst well, both of them. You know, you have the worst president and the worst vice president in American history, in my opinion.
Mm.
And I mean, just her as a politician in general. You know,
Ridiculous, man. I mean,
very ridiculous.
Just her startup and everything, and I know that there's controversy behind there. I know that also, you know, even just I believe that she was the was she the AG or DA? I want to say that she was the AG, where she was locking up a lot of people, man, and for petty little things.
And hiding files. Wouldn't release them. You know, there was a man on death row, you know, and then a judge had to order her to release those
Mm-hmm.
records. And it's just like, why would you even want to hide that? You know, you're claiming justice, but yet you're hiding evidence that could release this man.
I call them false prophets.
You know?
I'm going to just call it out and say for what it is. It's false prophets. And they say one thing in one hand, and then in the other, this is how they elect. You know, they go back on their word and they change it up. And
Always have. They're great at talking, and they're great at making empty promises.
Mm-hmm.
They really are.
It's almost like, you know, when Trump said it was racist, but now when they say, you know, it's all rainbows and unicorns, or
For sure.
let's invite, you know, them into our country, when meanwhile the resources and expenditures are not even being spent on Americans that truly do need it.
Mm-mm.
But let's keep on promising them resources that are not even fulfilled out, and it's once again putting people that are crossing the border for a better life or for a better opportunity, anything, you know, they're almost incentivizing this illegal immigration just to prove a point, and being like, you know, the United States still has that American dream. And yes, I truly do believe that. However, why are we falsifying it when in all actuality these people have to go like on trains, they have to be exposed to hypothermia, the weather condition, once again, rattlesnake. I mean, you could talk about anything, the desert's heat. I mean, it's just
think about the ones getting raped. Think about the kids, the women getting raped.
the
And guess what?
trafficking. Yeah,
Exactly. You know, and then look at whenever they get left, they're left. They don't know where to go, what to do. So 9 times out of 10, they're dying because one thing, it might be 80, 90 degrees in the day, but it gets really cold, some below freezing.
talk about
you
a
know,
night and day
and
difference right there.
Literally, it really is. And then think about, you know, just Mother Nature, the animal kingdom, wild, free. So they're just as hungry as we are, if not hungrier, because we can go get our food. They have to hunt theirs, you know. So when they see people like that, they smell that blood. You know, they don't know. It's all they know is, hey, there's food, you know. And when these traffickers, you know, abandon these people in some senses, like
It's almost like they're promoting.
man.
It's almost promoting a human rights problem by saying, yeah, the United States has this, but you have to go through all these obstacles to you know go through, and it's just like they wouldn't condemn, they wouldn't do anything above that nature. And look, I could sit here and say, you know, everything about America's sovereignty that I possibly can, but just the amount of times that our federal law has just been like Swiss cheese to almost some of these lawmakers to twist, bend, and mend to their pleasing, and to prove a political narrative, and just to try to get the votes of people. And it's just absolutely ridiculous, man. It is absolutely ridiculous. But even going past that, and just talking about even going back to Ukraine and everything, so the Secretary of State, I believe that they are meeting today, or could have been already done, since, you know, I believe they're a couple hours ahead over there in Ukraine. So, you know, all I can hope for is that Zelensky keeps up the good fight. I know that China's watching in the clutch as well, and I've just been reading a lot of things, and you brought up something to my attention, actually, where there were claims that China was going to invade Taiwan in the fall. And I took a step back at that, I even read a little bit of research. I believe a month ago they were saying that they were going to invade. A whistleblower kind of came out and said this. But ultimately, regardless of if the accusation was true or not, because I believe that they got their sources from Russia, I want to say, Taiwan's got to be on the defense. Taiwan at all times,
yep,
and
they do.
It's a very tough thing with Taiwan being an island. I believe that it's about 79 miles between, in the Taiwan Strait between mainland China and Taiwan, and just Taiwan is not just that island of Taiwan. There's little islands scattered throughout as well.
Yep.
So when we talk about this, and when a lot of researchers, and this is even when I was making my bill about Taiwan, that if someone were to bring up the point of, once again, China can just completely decimate Taiwan, they got an uphill battle there. The PLA, the People's Liberation Army, which are Chinese forces, they'd have to go against, Taiwan's defense forces in terms of, if China were to do this, it would have to be an amphibious assault. It would have to, they'd have to move a majority of their things by the sea. And I see that China's making these man-made islands now to control the air, and Taiwan's, I know that Taiwan recently, their army or their air force, I should say, the Republic of China's Air Force, they are looking to once again make their planes land on highways just in case airfields were to be blown up. Just in case any kind of infrastructure that they would have, so that way, Taiwan can keep its sovereignty and defend itself against China. And really comes down to that, even that first touch of land, if China were to make it to Taiwan, because I guarantee Taiwan would use defense missiles and everything in their power to keep.
They would have to.
They would.
Dude, the size and just the technology and all this and that, and it goes back to a couple months ago, you and I having a conversation on here where we recognized them for 31 years as an independent nation.
Yeah, it's gonna be, so I believe 1979. Yeah. We're looking at probably around 40-ish now. I mean, when you actually think about it, because I believe it was in 1979.
Yeah,
I could be
right,
wrong.
yeah,
It was in the Carter administration, right before Reagan took. But even then,
it's like, how can you recognize them and then say, okay, well, we're going to strip that away from you, but we're still going to supply you and we're still going to help. And now with China, if they control that area, it goes back to my whole philosophy of why they built the islands. It's that
air superiority, and those who control the air, they control the sea.
Oh, for sure. And it's like this though, like with those islands. So now the China's coast, that's the end, and then they go so many nautical miles out, and then boom, that's all they have. Well, if they build these islands, now they've just expanded their territory. So now their nautical miles go out even further, which it doesn't only affect Taiwan. I mean, you're talking Vietnam, you're talking a lot of countries,
the Philippines as well,
right, are in danger here of that, and it's seriously, it's nothing more than a hostile takeover. And the Obama administration, under Obama and Biden, they allowed this to happen. They literally allowed it, and they said, well, we're watching the situation very closely, and they're not going to militarize those islands. And it's just like, look, first and foremost, they shouldn't have even built them. They shouldn't even been allowed. We should have sent carriers and just plowed straight through them, in my opinion.
Yeah,
get them out.
It's crazy because a lot of people are like, why have U.S. intervention there? It's not really a problem there. But then you think about it. You think about the United Nations and how much cronyism has kind of just been from there, where people are losing faith in it. And I was reading an article where...
Can you blame them?
I don't blame them. I do not blame them.
Not one bit. It's hard to trust them.
It's scary because... and I don't know if it's a trust thing more so than it is, are they even doing their job? Because...
that goes back to the trust,
You see these debacles that they're having in the United Nations, especially in the Security Council, and you get with the General Assembly. And then when you think about it all, man, I mean, it's just absolutely... I honestly think nothing is getting done. It's not productive enough, because the more that this keeps on prolongating, more lives are being lost as they speak and try to delegate and everything. It's like the Avengers movie. I know that this is kind of bringing it off a little bit of a topic, but same concept. the Avengers movie, you had Team Captain America and you had Team Iron Man.
Yeah.
And Iron Man succumbed to the government's force of, all right, the United Nations, they could tell us when we can use our suits and when we can use our powers for the greater good of kind. Meanwhile, you had Captain America, my side personally, where why we listen to the UN? People are going to die during this time. Like, we need to be able to defend. And yes, there may be costs, there may be dividends on our end, but we have to work better for that. But we shouldn't have to be restricted in our power and go through legal proceedings in order to save the world. You know what I mean? But just bringing it back to real life, and I know that it's Marvel, so don't quote me. But regardless of,
but still, that's a good analogy, though. Seriously, because what is happening is exactly. I mean, that what better way to get it to more layman's terms that people that really don't follow, but yet they've seen that movie and they understand the concept of what took place in that movie. Take that, and it literally outlines what is going on right now over there.
And that's what's been
Perfect
the whole
analogy.
It's been the concept. And I'm diving a little bit into international relations here, so bear with me. And that's one of the things in South Carolina is that I haven't really seen it. I never really have heard it much, and it's something that I'm working to build off of an idea of mine, and I don't mind sharing it, to be honest with you, because I know I'll put in the work and the time and everything. I'm just waiting for everything to boggle down and everything to just execute the way that I want. But regardless of, I don't mind being that kind of voice to kind of be like, hey, international relations isn't really discussed here, and I know that many people are involved, even with the superintendent, and just localized things, taxes. I mean, you think about education. I mean, you could go off roads, infrastructure, etc. I definitely could see something with South Carolina, the way that it's developing, the way that it is going. I mean, I see it's very business centric, especially working for the state as well, and just seeing all these different things kind of trickle. I like to be that voice of international relations and just to keep it informative, nothing to tax your dollars, so to speak, but more so on the aspect of delivering humanities to the people that want to know what's going on in the world and see what's going on. And I know that people can just research, international affairs, everything like that, but it'd be very interesting to have it come out of South Carolina, homegrown. Be very, very interesting.
Just might. You never know.
Never know. And it's something I've been playing around, you know what I mean? Definitely playing around and just thinking about. But regardless of, when we look at it throughout the 20th century, it was the constant battle between the United Nations, in New York, where, you have a General Assembly, an International Court, a Security Council, basically, the likes of federalism to kind of implement, world order, so to speak. And a lot of people, even years prior to this, have lost the faith in it and have almost resonated it or have analogized it to basically being like the League of Nations, a complete and utter failure. And that's why people.
Good point.
And that's really what it comes down to. Meanwhile, the UN was there. You got the blue hats, and they came in. I mean, don't get me wrong, it served the purpose in the Korean War, the Forgotten War. Can't really go against that much. Yet, however, I know that General MacArthur, he wanted to keep on going past North Korea and go into, he wanted to capture North Korea to make, once again, the Korea as a whole, to be a democracy, and
it
really
should have happened.
And that's the thing.
Honestly, it should have happened.
It should have. I 150% agree. But the president at the time, I want to say Truman. Truman said not to go any further, or it could have been Truman, but I could be wrong. But just put it in layman's term, they told him not to go because, as people may know, Mao Zedong, he basically said, do not go past the Yangtze River, I want to say. Yangtze River.
That's
Don't
right.
go past that, because they were allies with Russia. And at the time, Russia had more nuclear weaponry than the United States did. However, I don't think that takes away from the United States overall basically coming out of that, becoming more of the superpower in terms of the computer revolution and what we were doing with technology, satellites that we were making and everything. Those things all took into account to our adversaries, and they, one way or another, folded like a deck of cards. Yeah. So it really comes down to some of these things that you talk about. But the UN was one factor in the 20th century, and then you had in Fairfax in Virginia, you had the CIA, Langley, all of that stuff. where the UN was saying one thing, but the CIA, they were going out doing covert ops and everything, and
Of course.
people working in
It's
government
like Laos,
buildings that
Look-
exactly.
Look what they did there.
Exactly. You could talk about Vietnam as well with I mean, there's just so many instances, you know what I mean? And it's just like, it'd be interesting to have a world order where the US stays consistent, don't get me wrong, but gets things done for the better of mankind. The UN's mission is to promote peace, prosperity, and collective security. So where has that been going on right now, especially in Ukraine? Where has that been? Look at China's looking to eye Taiwan right now. Where has that been? Taiwan's not even recognized under the UN. But yet again, there are countries that do dealings with Taiwan that actually address Taiwan as Taiwan. So it's one of the things that, honestly, I mean, going down the pipeline,
I think it all revolves around money, dude. Literally. I mean,
well, I definitely see, because China can stranglehold, but even then, with Taiwan's president Tsai Ing-wen, she's a very brilliant person, very patriotic person.
I was about to say, she has been tough on her stances too. Like, she really has, and people like that give their citizens hope.
Yeah, she posts on Instagram. I follow her on Instagram. She's posting Taiwanese flags over the Capitol, everything, promoting that we are an independent nation. That's right. Honestly, I think that she'd sit back there and call China's bluff and say, do it and see what happens. It'd be very, very interesting. Nonetheless, I mean, I'm not asking for peril, but really it comes down to, look, we could both coexist. We could both coexist.
And what's wrong with that? And it goes back to, like you said, when you're talking about everything coexisting, and so my thing is, and this is just when you're talking about doing dealings, with other people and all this and that, so other nations, and so I just read an article the other day, maybe 2 days ago, and it claimed that we're still buying oil from Russia. So Biden, I haven't heard him comment on it, which is kind of hard to understand him when he does comment on anything. And so I've literally, that doesn't surprise me, because these ships, right, they all have trackers. So first off, they're not even labeled. All right, these are oil carriers. They're not labeled. There's nothing, there's no log, and then once they take off a port in Russia, their tracker goes off. And so this just come out as a pretty big hit, because it's like, so let me get this straight. And this is how I thought. I was like, let me get this straight. We're sending, now we've topped, billions in over into Ukraine for lethal aid, non-lethal aid, all this and that, right?
Yeah.
And so we're doing that to fight against Russia, right? But we're buying billions of dollars of oil from Russia a day, okay?
Crazy.
So it's like, is that not counterproductive? So we're doing this in the shadows because they're cutting the trackers off.
Counterintuitive, feeding their economy.
We're feeding after we sanctioned them. Look how many oligarchs have been dead and their families just in the last 24 hours. Have you saw those stories?
I have not yet.
Yes, dude. I want to say it's up to 10.
Up to 10?
Up to 10. I'm talking like straight murdered. We're talking axe, knives, guns. Yes, I read an article, saw the video, not of the actual murder, obviously, but saw the video that the local news did. And he was in charge of one of their top, oil companies or whatnot.
Okay.
And so he had spoken out against this whole, invasion thing. Is like, look, this is crazy. Like,
I mean, I know that they've been
together.
Yeah, I know that they've been like silenced and everything, or like, either get on board or get locked up. Yeah,
like, seriously.
Like, I know they were getting killed.
Yes, dude. Like, check it out. I would say it's up to 10 families now. And when I say families, I'm talking wife, kids, everything. And when I read that article, there was a 13-year-old girl, the guy, his daughter. So, I mean, they came in there with an axe, and that's how they took it out. And then they tried to say, oh, well, none of these are related, and it's just like, look at here, follow the breadcrumbs. You know, I mean, come on, like it doesn't take a rocket scientist
to figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
it's
because
just like
they're all tied to the Kremlin. They're all tied to Putin. They're all tied to Russia. They've all spoke out against this. Some have even left the country.
Wow.
And now they're all being found dead. And then they're like, oh, well, the door was locked from the inside, so he hung himself after he murdered his family with an axe. And it's just like, really? Do you not think, I mean, look at, this isn't their first rodeo. I mean, you're talking about an old KGB agent, and he is acting the way that Stalin did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, that's how I see it. He is acting the way he did, as far as his aggression, you know, the stuff that he's doing, the length that he's going to. Meanwhile, our tax dollars, and think about this, guys, our money, we're still feeding them billions of dollars so to get their oil, while we were energy dependent. So therefore we had our own energy.
Energy independent.
Exactly.
We were energy. We were a net exporter, and I do not like the refutation. Oh, the United States was never, they never exported oil. Check the numbers.
Check
EIA.
the numbers. Yeah.
EIA.
That's all you got to do.
EIA.gov. You can check the numbers. We were energy independent. We were a net exporter of crude oil. And I just, to see us lose that spot, I'm almost flabbergasted. I'm dumbfounded.
Yeah.
I am dumbfounded.
It's like, why would you do it? Why would you do it? And then it goes back to.
But let's give free reign to OPEC nations. Let's give free reign.
Yeah.
But let's buy let's buy Russia oil. Meanwhile, they're taking over Ukraine. And then I think to myself, are they sitting back and thinking that, okay, well, how can the United States, which I'm assuming they are, because, well, if I was in the administration, I think, how would the U.S. benefit from this? Is it to get into war and build up a military-industrial complex? You know, one of the things, and this is what I loved about Republicans never really had a shining light, when we're talking about like the mid 20th century, because it was a lot, Democrats since Wilson and onwards, they were going up until Eisenhower really drew it out. And this is the distinction between a Republican conservative versus a neocon conservative, where neocons, they were more built up in the 90s and early 2000s and everything. But Eisenhower really kind of put that warning out there, and I believe it was in his farewell address, whereas to beware of the military-industrial complex and what it can cause.
Very well, yeah.
And it's very, very interesting to me. Excuse me. Cut that out.
You're good.
Yep. Too much iced tea. But regardless of, it's one of those things that when you think back to it all, is the U.S. going to utilize that military-industrial complex, build up, tell manufacturers, make government contracts with them? I work in that for the state, don't get me wrong, but is the federal government going to implement the same thing to factories throughout the United States to build up war machines once again and exert them out and sell them and everything so that the U.S. can make a profit, so that the United States citizens can, once again, live life, go to college, once again, be in a free nation? Meanwhile, there's other people out in the world, such as Ukraine and Russia, that are not going to resonate, or they're not going to have that. They're going to be prohibited. They're going to be under wartime. They're going to see heinous acts of crime. They're going to see destruction, decimation. And you sit back and you scratch your head. You think that we would have learned a lesson probably in the early 2000s, even in the 1900s, late 1900s, I should say, in the 90s.
There you go.
There's a lot of things to think about. You think about Kosovo. You think about even Europe during that time as well.
Well, and think about this. How or why don't we help stronger countries that need the help? We will start a war, or we will go to war, and we will defend people that don't need it.
There's an interesting book, and this may help your question, but it's more so. I believe it was Colin Powell, maybe, and it could have been. It's in a book called
Rest in Peace, General.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
There was a book called Rise of the Vulcans, and it really dives into just kind of the build-up. You talk about characters such as Condoleezza Rice, you talk about Donald Rumsfeld, you talk about George H.W. Bush,
I did.
but then you talk about Cheney, and then you talk about it talks about the two.
I wasn't a fan of Cheney.
That's what I'm saying.
I wasn't.
There was the book basically lies out that there were two facets of the Republican Party, from the 1970s after Gerald R. Ford, I want to say, kind of leading into Reagan and these prominent characters. Rumsfeld worked and how he got his buildup, how Colin Powell got his buildup, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and how their administrations ran. And it shows, once again, just that kind of duality, that dichotomy, I would say, of the Republican Party, where there was the neocons and then there were the other ones that were more diplomatic and everything. And when I look to it now, I wonder if Biden was pressed enough that the colors would show of him being a neocon if he were to go to war, or if he were to put the United States in a war in that aspect. Think about it.
I think he's already there.
Think about it. He's a corporate dem. He's a corporate Democrat. At the end of the day, business deals, etc., so on and so forth.
That's all he is.
And there's many things to even prove that, look at Hunter's laptop.
I was about look at his history, guys. I mean, seriously, like, how can he get away with being, dude,
40 years in Congress, come on, the connections.
Yeah, there are live videos of him being in Congress using the N-word while hosting, hearings, literally, and it's just like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
You know? So where are the calls for, him to be removed? He hasn't, first off, I don't think the dude has the mental capacity to even be president. Like, no. he really doesn't. No. It's just like, I don't even see, when everyone was calling for President Trump to take that test, and it's just like, oh, his mental state, he's not fit to be in office.
All of a sudden, everyone's a doctor now. Everyone knows what to do.
Oh, yeah, and you're a doctor. But they can't tell you the difference, between a man and a woman, because they're a doctor.
Yeah.
But they're not a biologist, and it's just like, man, get out of here with all that.
It's like, I'm not a veterinarian, but I know what a dog is from a cat. Like, really? Like, it's just simple thing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry guys. Yep.
We cut that out.
This will be explicit for sure. So anyway,
we're having a conversation.
Yes, we are. But I just, I don't see it, dude, and I don't see the outcry, and I don't see any of it. I don't see nothing that we had during the last administration. I really don't. And so what I have noticed is, they've ramped up the attacks on President Trump because they think that he's going to run for a bid in 2024. So now they're starting to do all these tactics and starting to hit him left, right, up, down, side, everything, because they're afraid of that, and here it is, again, are you going to suffer the wrath of your lies and your betrayal to America? Because that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're selling our country to the highest bidder.
And that's what I honestly feel like, they have to be delegating a little bit or in the discussions about, because what they're seeing over there, and don't get me wrong, maybe for the greater good and that necessary evil, so to speak, if we get into it yet again. But I'm interested to see whether he's going to let this slide, or is he going to, who knows? Is he going to blame a Republican Congress for not going into war? Like, I feel like any slip up that he does, it's always a blame. There's never any accountability. There's never any responsibility. Or, I asked the question, Joe. I thought the buck stopped with you. I thought the buck stopped with you. You told America. You told America that the buck stopped with you.
The buck stops with you, Biden. Where? I ain't seen it stop.
It stops where the Republicans make fault, or where, some of your Democrat colleagues that you like to revere so much, when it's fitting for them and everything, that's when it stops? No, you should take that responsibility, because you were the one that wanted to take that accountability. And now when we are asking for accountability, you are nowhere to be found. You are nowhere to be seen. You take no questions, you run off stage. And you get lost. Oh, you whisper. Yeah.
And now you have AOC
and he gets lost on stage. He's getting lost on stage. So, once again, I'm not a doctor, but at the same time,
you're not an idiot neither. You know what I'm saying? You're not an idiot neither. Man. So it's just like, come on. My son can see it, and he has enough sense to know, Dad, something's not right with that dude. you know, and again, once my kids reach a certain age, so I'm very careful when I discuss politics with my children, but I do discuss politics with my children. I just break it down in different levels based on their age. And I also, when I bring it across, you know, I want to give them a narrative of having options and what options lead to, you know? So it's just like, let me give you this example. You got door A and door B, all right? Door A will lead to $10 million, but you've got to run through, you know, flames with your clothes being soaked in gasoline to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you got door B, which has no money, and but there's no flames, but you can get to where you're going.
Yeah.
So do you take the risk of taking the money and getting burnt, or do you just open door B and get to where you're going? So I kind of break it down, and not saying that's literally how I say it, but I do try to give them options to say, hey, everything we do, you know, cause and consequence, up, down, left, right, you know, you have to talk to them about it. But again, when my son seen him, like, seriously, like, you know, Dad, like, there's something wrong with that guy.
He was raised right. He's I love your son, man. He's a great dude.
He looks up to you a lot, like he does. He does, man. Like he does. I know whenever he goes with me or we're doing something, you know, and because we've spent a lot of time, Jerry, this past almost a year, you know, and we have literally spent a lot of time together, and you know, we've gotten to know each other, and you know, I met your parents, you know, me and your mom. We've had several conversations, me and your father, and so very, very great family. And you know, to have your mom, you know, when she told me, she was like, you know, like you're part of the family, and I was just like, man, that's phenomenal. So
absolutely,
I called her Ma Nancy. You know, that's a big shout out to you, Ma Nancy. Yeah, and so, but. You know, when my son, like, literally, he would ask, he's like, Dad, is Jerry coming? Dad, is Jerry going to be there? And so the impression that you left on him, you know, was phenomenal, because he sees, you know, a younger gentleman, hardworking, loves his country, very patriotic. And just like when we went to that rally, I didn't tell him what to expect. I didn't tell him what not to expect. He had to figure that out for himself. All right. He'll be 14, you know, next month. So I don't know if you remember, but he looked at us and we were walking, and I was trying to get a scarf. Matter of fact, this one that's behind me, this scarf right here. And so, because my face, you know, like with all the screws and plates, like it started to swell up and all this and that. And so, but he sat there and he said, Dad, he was like, you know, everyone's so nice here. I don't know if you remember that. And I'm like, well, what did you expect, son? And he was like, I don't know. I mean, I've just heard so many bad things about, you know, President Trump and how these rallies and stuff go. I didn't know what to expect. And so it's just like, dude, like, I mean, and there were all walks of life. There were, you know, white Americans, black Americans, Asian Americans, Mexican Americans. There were all walks of life at that event. And for my son to sit there and be like, man, Dad, everyone's here is so nice. And it's just like, well, yeah, buddy, like, this is what it's about. This is America. This is what it's about right here.
100%.
And for him to realize that and to actually see that on his own, and to come to that, you know, analogy on his own, it was just like, man, like it blew me away. So when he sees someone like you, you know, a younger gentleman that's hardworking, that's patriotic, and he sees that, and then he has his father that, you know, he's sat there and he's heard me talk. He's heard me. I mean, I can't tell you how much, which, I mean, I have just about every book that Reagan's ever put out, or that has ever been put out about Reagan. And I love him as a person. I thought he was a great president, but I love him as a person. Take away the actor, take away the presidency, take away everything. And just, oh, dude, I could read his speeches over and over and over. And he literally put God first, country second.
Is that your favorite president, would you say?
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
Who is your favorite president?
If I had to base it off of leadership qualities, patriotism, faith, I would say Reagan. Yeah.
Reagan?
Yeah, I would. Based off those, you know, the leadership qualities. his faith,
Mm.
his family, his morals, his values, him just in general, his sense of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy would, he
Yeah.
would crack these jokes up. Like, he could legit be a comedian, in my opinion. And they're like,
I remember he was at a speech and a balloon popped and he's like, "Huh, miss me."
yeah, right. And
so charismatic, very, very charismatic guy.
he was.
But then there was the other side of Reagan where a lot of people didn't like. They thought, okay, he only focused on countries that mattered. You know what I mean? For whatever that meant. But nevertheless, I always thought that he was for the benefit of the United States. And
It was God and then country.
Yeah.
And that was it. Our military.
Mm.
Like, he sat there and that's all. That's what he talked about. I mean,
Yeah.
he talked about freedom.
Yeah.
He talked about the United States. This flag right here,
Mm.
the red represents the blood. Like, he spoke on that all the time.
Yeah.
You could hear it and you could see it. I mean, I get chills still to this day when I listen to some of his speeches. And one of my favorite, and I actually have it saved on my phone, the entire video, where it's he was going, and it's where he made, it's called A Time for Choosing is what it was. And that was, how they titled it. But it was when he was going from the Democratic Party over to the Republican Party.
Mm.
And if you sit there, guys, and if you listen to that speech today, and this is April the 24th, 2022, and he done this speech, gosh, I want to say, I don't know, back in the 60s, 70s,
Okay.
60s, maybe early 70s. No, yeah, it had to be in the 60s. But anyway, check it out. And it's called A Time for Choosing. And if you listen to what he said in that speech, and you think about what's going on in America today, you would be like, whoa. It was baffling. And whenever, $1 trillion back then was like a made up word.
Yeah.
It was like Neverland. I mean, it was something you might would hear in a movie, but it didn't exist. Like, it just no. So to get to a $1 billion, that's it. That was hard to fathom for people. Even though $1 billion, it existed, and but to hear him talk about our national deficit, the way things are ran and how things were structured, and what made him leave the Democratic Party and go to the Republican Party. And again, I highly recommend it. It's called A Time for Choosing. Look it up on YouTube. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it will make you think, and you'd be like, wow, I could seriously, all I need to do is just change the numbers.
Yeah.
And bam, that would fit right in the pocket of today's society here in America.
Yeah, I know that he was combatant against a lot of Keynesian economics. So, I mean, one of the things that he championed was neoliberalism, and letting businesses thrive, and a lot of
Mom and
people.
pops.
Yeah.
They need to.
Yeah.
They need to.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy how it's taught, even at a collegiate level. It's crazy how it's taught with, with OPEC that was going on, he was, created a deficit and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, so let's take Keynesian economics, once again, Democrats at that time, they were more championing. It's almost like no matter how you cut it, no matter how you try to piece it up, it's a redistribution of wealth, and that won't be masked. I'm not letting people or professors mask that for what it truly is. And they want to say that that's going to, once again, that's going to stimulate the economy. That's going to be the jumper in the economy. No, it's not going to be the businessman under neoliberalism. It's not going to be the businessman that, is providing jobs, 401ks, vacations, etc., so on and so forth. Look at Tesla. Look at these major companies that you got going on over here in the United States that, once again, provide people the means and provide them a paycheck, and a lot of that has been, to me, at least in my generation, it's always been the attack the 1%, attack the 1%.
And by the way, guys, the 1%, and think about this, 1%, so that leaves 99% of every other American. 1% of Americans pay more than half of our tax bill every year. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, Hunter. or whoever, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah.
I honestly think to myself, though, it's always that constant attack. It's always that constant rebuttal. And I think, goes back to your point, their percentage of tax money, even if it's lesser than ours, it's more than we'll ever pay in our life, number
in
one.
our life, dude. Look what Elon just paid.
And just because
Bro,
some people,
man.
exactly, and some people, they utilize the tax laws to their benefit, which, look,
there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a
would you do the
business
same
owner.
thing if you were a businessman?
As a business owner, I promise you, my accountant, we will take advantage of every single loophole that we can.
And
every single one. And I'm going on record. Boom.
And as you should. And I'll even go on record and I'll drive it a little even further. You know what? You got all these people preaching, pay your taxes and pay your fair share and yada, yada, yada. What? So we can put them in the pockets of politicians and put them in the pockets of lawmakers that are using it for the benefit of themselves and not for the benefit of the people and what they were elected for. You could take that in your pipe and then you could smoke that, because when you're seeing that there's infrastructure that is completely destroyed, decimated, everything above that, you really want to keep on paying your fair share into that. This is why we're a little bit heated up. We're heated up.
That's right.
And that's one of the things that, you sit back, scratch, your head again and be like, I understand why they do it.
Or think about those that drives a Mercedes or that have iPhones and this and that, and we're paying for their food. $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month on food stamps. And let me tell you guys, if you need it, use it. I'm not saying anything about that, but what I am saying is, if you can afford to drive an expensive car, have super nice cell phones, super nice clothes, all this and that, but you can't afford to buy your own food, to me, you got your priorities mixed up.
And that's what it comes down to.
Go to Walmart, and that's what I look at here. I have bought my clothes from Walmart. I've bought my children's clothes from Walmart many of times. Especially, dude. I was 18. I turned 18 in April and had my daughter in July.
Yeah.
So naturally, that was the first legal job I ever had, was whenever she was born. So I didn't know I was a meat cut. Like, dude, I didn't know what to do. I mean, seriously, I tinted windows. Started that when I was 16, right? So. Tinted windows, did pinstripes, graphics, things like that, and I couldn't get a business license because I was only 16, and I had people say, well, hey, let me get this license for you, and then when you turn 18, I'll give it over to you. And I'm like, well, no, that's not how it works, because even though I was 16, I wasn't no fool. You know what I mean? And my father owned his business, so I grew up in that work as entrepreneurs. Gotcha. And so someone gets a business license, right? And I'm a minor, I'm doing all the work, yet they're making the money. So when I turn 18, I'm expecting to get that over. Yeah. There's nothing they can do. They can look at me and laugh and be like, this is my company. Thanks for building it for me. Peace. And going about your way. But I've had to have help before, and I'm not saying, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying anything about that. No. But what I am saying is pick and choose.
Pick and choose. And there's a lot of people that abuse also the system.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. Man, when you can go, all right, prime example, I was in the gas station maybe 4 nights ago. All right, I went up and I don't know, I was doing something, and the tractor, I don't know if I needed diesel or something, but anyway, it was some weird thing I had to go and get when I was on the tractor. Yeah. And so somebody came in there and they went to buy some stuff, right? And they had a bunch of candy, drinks, chips, the whole 9 yards, all right? And they pulled out an EBT card. And the lady said, I'm sorry, we don't take that. And dude got pissed off. And I sat there, and you know me, like, I'm pretty vocal, and so I sat there and I'm like, that's a good thing, just like that, and I said that, and he looked and he was like, well, how was that a good thing? And I was like, because that is meant to buy food for your family, not to come to a store and buy chips and candy. Yeah, there's a big difference. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So for any gas station that allows people to come in and use a food stamp, because you used not to be able to. Yeah. Used not to be able to. When I was 18, like I say, I got food stamps.
Used to be very strict programs, and this is the problem with a lot of these programs. These programs, they get federalized even more. They get subsidized even more. They become bigger and a bigger problem. Yep. And they just become...
They incentivize you to stay home.
100%. And then you talk about the whole COVID situation, and that's even more of an incentive.
And then they wonder why we have a job shortage. So let me tell you, I was seeing someone do the math the other day, right? So let's say that I pay you $500 a week to work for me, right? And that's after taxes. It's a pretty good paycheck, right? So no children, right? So it's you and your girlfriend, right?
Gotcha.
$500 a week, all right, after taxes. And your girlfriend, she works, boom. So that's 2 incomes right there, right? All right. So we'll take that, bam. Well, if I will pay you $700 a week and not even worry about taxes, and all you have to do is fill out a piece of paper to say that you went and signed up for an interview, which one are you going to do? Are you going to go to work and make more money, but yet pay your taxes, pay your dues, bring home $500 cash? Or are you going to sit at home and write down, okay, well, all I have to do is meet the requirements, and the requirements is for me to do so many interviews a month, not get a job, but to try and get that interview every month. I have to at least, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the standard rate is, okay? But I know North Carolina's facing that really bad, and there's South Carolina. There's so many that are doing that. So when Biden, when we're talking about, there's a job shortage, or there's there's a labor shortage and all this and that. No wonder there's a labor shortage, Joe, because they're getting paid our tax dollars that him and I, along with many other Americans, sit here forking out every single week, month, year.
And that's going to be dwindling, I'm telling you.
It is.
The rate that it's going, the policies that are being put forth.
Oh, dude, wait till next year. Like, if you guys think that the prices are high now, wait until next year. I sat there and went and bought 2 roasts the other day. I think I might have told you about that when I sent you to the store. And I made those roasted noodles. You guys bomb, too, guys. But anyway, I sat there, dude, and I mean, it cost me nearly $30 for 2 little London broils. All right, London broil roast. All right, and these wasn't big. But right at $30, and I'm like, dude, seriously. And that was me using the little discount card, little Food Line card or whatever it was. I'm like, man, too, I have a family of 6 guys, and that's including myself. So a wife and 4 kids. Our grocery bill a month, we can go through $2,000 a month in food. And that's no joke, because they're all growing. They're all hitting them teenage years. My baby girl, like I say, she'll be 12, so she adds another, next year she'll be 13, but nonetheless, dude, they're all growing. And my son, he will put down some food. He's outside exercising, doing his thing, working, and it costs a lot to keep that food, out there. And I was just telling my mom last night when we were talking, I was like, because she was talking about the prices of food, because she works, for a food chain, Food Line. And so anyway, she's the deli bakery manager. That's what she's done for, over 20 something years. But she sat there and she was like, Brandon, she was like, I can't believe the price of this, and then it's going to go up again next week. And I'm like, well, Mom, what needs to happen is we need to go back to history. What did those people do when tough times happened? What did my great grandparents, and I got to grow up like this, which I'm very grateful for. That's why we take advantage of it. But they grew they grew their food. They harvested their meat. You go hunting, you go fishing. Boom.
Which we got to do one of these days.
Oh yeah, especially coming up, man. But the Reverend would come down to my great grandfather's house. He had a big old wooden barn in the back, and he would bring a pig or whatever he had, And my great grandfather, because he was a chef in the Navy, like I say, his kidneys ruptured. Literally when Pearl Harbor was attacked. So after the surgery, they was getting him off the island, and that's when they could see the island being attacked. So he barely made it. But nevertheless, that's what he did. So when he came home, they would always bring the meat down there, and he would butcher it up, cut it up, and he never wanted a payment.
Yeah.
never like didn't pay. That was just community. That's what they did that's back when 321, it wasn't 321, it was Route 2 or Route 3, something like that. But so that's just how long ago that was. But the Reverend would sit there and he would give, my great grandparents, here's some meat for you and your family.
Yeah.
And then my great grandmother would sit there and, that would be the first piece cut off, and she would be preparing dinner or supper, whichever way, we call it supper, but however you want to label it, she would be in there preparing that while my great grandfather was, out there in the shed doing his thing. But when it come to, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, carrot, they just potatoes, sweet potato. They went in the garden and they picked it up.
You could just learn to be, once again, like self-sufficient. Buy the seeds. It's the same thing. I eat a lot of fruits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So vegetables as well. It's one of those things. Why am I going to pay an outrageous price for it when really a solution could be, grow it in your backyard. Grow it in one of those standing little pots.
I was about to say, get a 5-gallon bucket, dude.
Yeah.
Seriously. And as a contractor, I take all of my sheetrock mud that we use, and I save all the buckets, literally. And so last night, I cut the grass. I was talking to you, I went and got cigars and headed back to the house, and I cut the back field.
Yeah.
And because it's time for me to put my planters out. And so since we have a lot of deer, it's easier for me because I've had the garden, they've knocked the fence over, so it just doesn't work. And I would sit there, and now I just put them in 5-gallon buckets, and I take all of my drywall buckets, I clean them out real good. I keep some for work, maybe 2 or 3, but the rest of them I literally just have, and they become my planters.
Yeah.
I'll drill a couple small holes in the bottom, not big, I'd say maybe an 1/8-inch drill bit, just something to where the water releases slowly. It's not going to pour out, but it will release slowly. Yeah. And so, and if you need to move them, you can move them.
Yeah.
You could do whatever you want to. And so it doesn't take much. And guys, you could literally take a sweet potato.
Yeah.
Put a couple, put a couple of toothpicks, or skewers through them, right? Fill your cup up with water, just a regular cup. Put it in the water. Put your skewers through them, and then sit that sweet potato or potato in, or carrot, whatever you want. Put it in that cup of water. Wait till it sprouts.
Yeah.
All right, that's all you gotta do. Once it sprouts, then cut that off, and then put it in the water, and then wait for the roots to grow. Once the roots start to grow, transplant it, put it in your dirt, and then bam, you got it.
Yeah.
It's done. It's really simple.
Yeah.
But we literally, the country, the society has become so dependent on others, and just the
you lose the identity of self-sufficiency and being independent.
You really do, because you're expecting it to always be there when you want it, when you need it. It always has to be. That's why when they're talking about storms and the pandemic, for example, that's why everybody was freaking out, and they was going and they was hoarding stuff. Dude, I seen hand sanitizer on eBay for almost $700. I was like, flipping hand sanitizer? Dude, $700. Like, are you serious right now?
Wow.
As a micro distiller, I could sit there, and I got a license from the state because they eased up, on what we could do. And so we got a grant or not a grant, but we got the taxes low, like, hey, we're going to waive this.
Yeah.
So you can make hand sanitizer. Because it's alcohol, guys. I mean, I got some sitting right over there. That big bottle right there, that's made by a liquor company.
Wow.
Yeah,
I know a lot of companies, they definitely had to transition, at least with their assembly lines and everything, but still nonetheless, like I also get it for that as well. I mean, when you're paying like an iPhone price for hand sanitizer, like it's pretty crazy. But yeah, it just goes back to it all.
Think about the people that actually bought that.
Yeah.
That's the sad part. Even though the price was sad, what's even sadder is the ones that actually bought it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, to each his own, but there were other options. There's other things.
Ways,
way other things, man. I mean, before
just because you have to go around, you just have to go around the corner. You can't cut the corner, you know what I mean? But
you can't cut it, but
you got to go around
just
the
like
corner
you
a
said.
little bit, put a little bit of work into it, and and that's what it's all about. And I understand that, and it's one of those things, man. And I think especially for food, especially if you could be as self-sufficient as possible. You know what I mean? I always loved gardening and stuff like that and doing that.
It's a great process, man. It's a great process.
Yeah,
it really is.
It really is. But just bringing it back, man. I mean, it's good to be on the show and everything. And yeah, man.
I know it's been a minute since we had you back on, dude.
Oh, it's been good.
It has, man, and I'm glad we was able to. I know when Jerry reached out, and so because like I said, we talk like literally every day, whether it's a text message or a phone call. Like we
always in the talks.
Yes,
always
yes.
In the talks.
So like you know, we've really formed a great friendship and brotherhood, actually. You know, and like I say, to have Ma and Nancy sit there and say, well, son, you know, like you're part of the family. Like I expressed what that meant to me, to you.
Yeah.
I did. You know, I'm not gonna get all that on here, but still, because that was private. You know what I'm saying? But you know what that meant.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And so that's special, and I know that it's reciprocal. Like it really is.
100%.
And so when we was talking, I don't know, a couple days ago, and we're trying to plan, you know, just like, hey man, like, you know, some upcoming things, like what we're gonna do, like, you know, we're gonna go for cigars and a beer, or you know, want to go to the gun range, or you know, like what are we doing? You know, I know you're studying and all this and that, and so yeah, we were just in the talks, just chatting it up, and so
it's just been good, you know, man, and I definitely want to go out. I mean, dude, it's a beautiful Sunday today. You know,
it was, dude. When I got up this morning,
79 degrees,
and I heard the birds chirping, I was like, oh my goodness! I had to take my daughter to work, which she gets off here not too much longer from now. It's almost, well, it's a little after 2, but she gets off at 3. But still, you know, I was just like, man, you know. And then I had that smell of fresh cut grass coming through the window, because I have to sleep with my window open like every night. And and so don't get no ideas, because I keep a gun beside the bed. But anyway, you know, but it just, I was like, man, yeah, like that smell, I loved it. And I had no choice. I posted on my Facebook. I was like, man, you know, what a beautiful Sunday morning.
That's what I'm saying, dude. It was
South Carolina Southern Sunday morning.
Just what's in store for the summer, man. I love it down here, man. I cannot stress enough, you know, being someone from a different place, what a hidden gem of a state, and how beautiful it really is.
Yeah.
That sun, that moon at night, you know, you could cool out with like a nice sweater, nice little beer,
For sure.
nice little cigar. I'm telling you,
Yes,
like,
sir.
it's unmatched, and it's just good to be here.
Yes,
It's good to be here. So, but yeah, many things to come from us. I definitely say, all in the works. You know, keeping it behind closed doors for now, seeing what's going on, and
That's right. That's
taking
right.
a step back, really learning, observing, and seeing what's going on. And man, I cannot stress it enough. I know I sound like a tape recorder, but man, it is good to be in SC. It
Yes,
really
sir.
is.
And one thing, you guys, if you don't know already, then I'm going to tell you, you know, you won't find out until it's over. We'll tell you when it's done. You know, that's
Absolutely.
the best part about it. So
100%.
you'll always keep guessing, and you'll always keep wondering what the next move is. But once we make the move, then you'll find out. We won't tell you the move, and then you find out. Nah, it don't work like that.
Work in silence will make our success make the noise. So that's
it,
all it's
brother.
about, man. So once
Yes,
again,
sir.
BB,
Brother.
it is a pleasure. It is a pleasure being. Seriously, thank you.
Oh man, as always, as always, I'm glad we was able to get together for this episode, dude. And yeah, so I'm literally going to get my daughter and then hang out a little bit. I got to do some work around the house and some work in the yard still. Like I say, it's literally gardening time for us. I was pruning up the fruit trees last night, and so yeah, dude, green plums, they're my favorite. I'm a sucker for green plums, y'all. And yeah, dude, so just, yeah, man, it's gonna be a nice day. And then at the end, I'll probably make me a drink and grab a cigar and literally just chillax for the rest of the evening, man, and call it.
Hey, dude, that's what's up. I mean, seriously, man, enjoy your day. Got a beautiful afternoon ahead of us, and getting ready to go into the work week and handle the business.
Yes, sir. Is there anything you want to leave them with before we go?
Just know I'll be around a lot of the local capital GOPs, you know, visiting, you know, different ones, Fairfield, Sumter, Richland, but, you know, definitely Richland. And, you know, just making a presence, knowing, just being there and seeing what's going on in the community, and just observing and absorbing it like a sponge. That's all I'm doing. So
that's what's up, brother. Well, I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
And again, congratulations on your test too.
Appreciate it. Yeah, the data science test I recently completed. Many people do know that I was, throughout the month of March, just studying rampant. I mean, just getting this in, and I recently became Tableau Desktop Specialist certified, pretty much. So it's basically a tool that I use to make all different kinds of graphs, such as bar charts, pie charts, histograms, bullet charts, anything that you can name. It's very data, very, very data integrated, and I'm just so happy to have learned this skill, and I can bring it anywhere I go. And man, work is doing very well. I'm very, very happy where I'm at, and we're just gonna keep it going, man. Seriously,
right,
I'm just good, and whatever opportunity strikes, then I will make my move. So
I love it, man.
it's good, man. It's good.
Like I say, man, congratulations again.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you taking the time out your day to come and shoot this episode with us.
Thanks for having me, man. Seriously.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, South Carolina, man. We hope you guys have a great Sunday afternoon. And as always, stay safe and kiss your babies. Tell your family you love them. Tomorrow's not promised, and we know that every day. So keep that in mind. Make the best of it. It's your life. Don't let no one dictate to you what you do or how you do it. Do whatever you feel like you need to do to be successful, or whatever it is you want to do. It's up to you. Use the gift that God gave you, because it could seriously take you further than you ever could imagine. And don't let no one dictate to you what you can and cannot do. You're your own boss, and always remember that. So with that, as always, I'm your host, Brandon Peak. You heard it here first. Thank you for listening to Podcast 1854. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe this video, guys. Peace.